All
We're
right,
live.
we are live. Hi, Alicia.
Hi, Steve.
Well, obviously, welcome to the chat, or the interview, I think I should call it. But look, obviously, we've known each other for some time. We've done a podcast previously. Obviously, everything has changed since then. And actually, just as we kick this off, I've got sirens going off in the background. So God knows what's happening actually in the city. We are in some wild times at the moment, Alicia.
It is unreal. I feel like every day it's changing. Like even this time
Yes.
last week, I was still booked to travel and, kids were in school and everything was different. So I think every day it's kind of escalating and businesses are pivoting every day, like new communications coming out. So it's a really interesting time to see how different people respond and react. And I think as a society, not only, from a business perspective, but everybody in the society.
Well, we're going to be talking obviously about business part, but I think it's a pretty good subject to talk about is the actual personal part as well, because right now, both me and you are sitting at home having this discussion, and there's going to be impact to that. And so, look, I suppose the best way to kick off is to explain a little bit about what you do. Obviously we've been working together for some time. You've been helping us on the sort of building of our team. So all the team members that you get to meet from WI, we've worked and collaborated with you on the hiring process, and also just the team leadership process. So please go into a bit of detail.
Yeah, so look, we help organizations empower leaders at all levels of your business. And that's through making sure that you hire the right people into the right roles, make sure that you know how to manage and inspire each and every individual team member. And we do that through a tool called Predictive Index to give you that deep science piece rather than your gut instinct. So I think you've been through a really interesting journey, as a lot of leaders do, because your one management style that you've had your whole career, as your business grows, as you get more people, as you get different people, your business needs different strategies from you. It needs a different leadership style depending on the situation. And the good thing I find in this time, and you and I have had that conversation, is, well, how do you inspire each individual? Because the message to each individual actually has to be changed. Yes. You can't think that it's not a one size fits all. And now's the time in a crisis where you have to lean into someone's profile and say, well, what do you need? What drives you? What motivates you? And how do I tap into that and give you what you need in this really challenging time?
And it's a really interesting part. And it's almost like I'm sure like most founders, my mind's racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Sleep is, who's getting sleep at the moment, really?
What's that?
Yeah, correct, right? Like you're like, for us, we're obviously changed our business model, gone completely virtual. We're obviously doing a lot more content, such as, doing stuff like this. And really the part you forget about is that this is not business as usual for your team. This is a whole new environment for them. They're watching, and I communicated this with my team this morning. Like I'm sure they're seeing some of their friends being let off. I'm sure they're seeing some of their friends stand down. They're watching jobs disappear. Most companies have got hiring freezes at the moment, or there's plenty of stories of letting go. Like, how do you, like, I know from your background, you obviously got experience, your sort of background. We should get into that at some stage, but how do you, what's the perception, or how do you sort of communicate with founders about what the team members are experiencing?
I think it's really unique depending on your demographic. So, but regardless, I think everybody understands that change is going to happen. But the challenging thing is, how do you deal with change? Because some people, you and me knowing your profile, is you lean into change, and change doesn't scare you. In fact, you need a bit of change to keep you, energized to get out of bed. So, but there are other people that need that structure and stability. And structure and stability is sometimes even the routine of getting up and going to work every day. Yeah. And now we're ripping that away from them and saying, well, actually, now we're going to change your routine. Now you work from home. Now you've got to leverage technology that maybe you weren't using before. So there's some more change. By the way, the business direction has changed. So, look at you and your business model. It's changing. My business model's changing. Everybody's pivoting. And the question is, how fast can you pivot? Then you've got to get your staff to pivot. So regardless of how you feel about change, you're going to be finding this situation quite challenging. And I guess that's when it comes down to mindset. What's your mindset in this? And that's some of the the content I've been talking to people about is, do you have a growth mindset, or are you in a fixed mindset? Where are you? And actually,
well,
where
look,
do you want to be?
Jesus, if you're in a fixed mindset, good luck. Look, and to add to that, it's not just like you can change direction. Like I can easily sit over the weekend and go, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that, but you've got to take an entire team with you. Like that is the key. And then that entire team needs to communicate that to staff, suppliers, stakeholders, and so forth, whilst in motion. And I think that's the part that can be forgotten quite easily.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to how you communicate and what. So communication now is going to be, it's kind of make and break for business leaders. Because often, especially, if you're quite a task oriented person, you're going to go home, think about all your plans, and then decide and announce. And just, by the way, everybody, this is what I've decided to do. You don't have the luxury of consulting people at this point in time. You have to decide or announce, or it's make and break for the business.
Yeah.
Some people aren't going to like that, right? So the challenging thing is, how do you take people on the journey? How do you communicate as much as possible in probably the world's shortest time frame? So I think now it's really important for business leaders to think about, what communication am I going to give my team every day? You now need to get down to a daily communication flow. What are you communicating, when and how? Like, are you going to do virtual daily stand-ups? Are you going to leverage Slack? What are you going to do? Because written communication, as we know, it gets lost in translation.
Oh, it 100%. And also tonality gets lost as well. Body, like the most, I can't remember exactly what the stats are, but body language and tonality are two of the biggest communicators before words. And Slack is difficult to describe that. And you can see easily, and more than that, when people are isolated and also communicating, it's difficult.
Yeah, and I think they take things out of context. Right now, a lot of people are in quite a fearful mindset, and that's whether it's going on at work or in their personal lives. I mean, I've got little kids, I've literally just got a message right then saying they've lost electricity at the school. They might have to go and pick up kids right now. So everything's going to change every hour of every day, and you've got all these outside of life, outside of work factors and work factors.
Yeah.
So you've got people in a pretty highly stressed mind state, and now you want them working differently with each other. It is a recipe for chaos. It's a recipe for disaster if we do not have good leadership in place.
And so for leaders, what would you say would be the key things you'd like to communicate to them as far as how they can manage this as far as a turbulent time, and how they can keep their teams completely focused on their customers and their vision, I suppose?
Yeah, I would say you can't over communicate your vision at this point, right? I think people want to be grounded in knowing they have purpose, right? Because outside of life, outside of work can be a little bit chaotic. So knowing that they have purpose when they come to work is really important. And the job they do is highly valuable, and the job they do is highly critical, and helping them understand, well, how does my job help us stay alive right now and help this business stay afloat? How does my job impact the business? And I would be encouraging leaders to be having as many one-to-one conversations with their staff as possible. And that's not always possible.
I was going to say, and that's a tough one, because I'm sure, like I'm doing at the moment anywhere from 8 to 12 meetings a day. Like it's half hour on the half hour, and that's not easy. So
yeah, and I think this is where, if you're at that CEO level, you need to make sure that you're empowering your senior executive team and telling them exactly what's expected of them. And I think managers at all levels of your business need to really up their game, and it's sort of make or break for them in terms of how they're communicating, talking to people regularly, connecting with them, and keeping them very clear and focused. Don't overwhelm them with too many things to do. Get them focused. Here are the 3 things I need you as a team to be working on this week.
And would that be done in the morning huddles that you're talking about, the sort of 15-minute huddles? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'd be running your business in that sort of agile sprint methodology. I mean, I've come from IT companies basically my entire career, and I think in this environment where, agile is really effective when you're going through that rolling change, so that rolling improvement. Yeah. Now everything is rolling and like everything is
new.
And so those 15-minute stand-ups, I mean, if you do research on the Agile methodology, doing daily stand-ups, getting people to share where they're up to and what they're focusing on for the day or the week, however you choose to do it, and just focusing on those sort of 3 core activities. What do you want people doing? And then keeping people accountable along the way.
Yeah, okay. And I suppose that goes to another part, is that we talked about isolation before, and as I mentioned, both of us are at home. It's been funny for me doing video calls with some people, and they're not quite set up, and you see like a partner in the background, and they see success when they finally see it work, and you know it's a funny scenario. But like, what are the tips you have? Because soon we're all going to be working with partners at home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in our normal working environment, we don't have that. So any suggestions for sort of navigating that? And I was going to say, like, how do you communicate to your partner, like, if they're trying to talk to you whilst you're working, can't communicate right now?
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's exactly, I mean, I always say to people, and what I've been saying to people as of last week is, you actually need to carve out a space in your home that works really well for you, and that you create boundaries with your family. I mean, my husband's put locks on the inside of the room that I'm working out of. I've actually locked myself into this room so my kids can't come in, because I can't have kids walking past on a video conference. We also had to find somewhere in the house that you've got really good internet connection, because there's always going to be a black spot in your house, right?
Yes.
And you don't have good reception, and guess what? NBN's not sort of rolled out everywhere yet. We're all struggling with the internet and phone reception. So find a place in your home that works. I was talking to a colleague of mine last week, and she absolutely cracked me up. She said to me, she goes, Alicia, I'm keeping to my routine. So I've been going to my sunroom in my house, and for 30 minutes in the morning, I watch half an episode of Netflix, like I'm on the train. And then I go and sit myself down in my home office, so my brain knows that I've done my commute. I do my 8-hour workday, and then at the end of that, I go back to my sunroom and watch half an episode on Netflix. He's like, because my brain is used to that. And I was like, okay, whatever works for you, like that's great.
As you're telling that story, one of our team members, Patrick, sent around an image of a guy holding onto the sort of
yes, at home.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love it. Now, obviously, we talked about the sort of positive stuff and the leadership aspect. Now, I know that you're sort of, obviously, I know your story. You told me about your introduction to sort of this area of dealing with talent, sort of in 2008. Obviously, leaders are going to have, not have to. There's a high probability that you're going to have to be part of letting people go at some stage. And when you're letting people go, you've got the issue of momentum from a team perspective, losing of a certain IP. What sort of advice or guidance can you give to sort of CEOs that are facing those sort of tough decisions that they'll need to make?
Oh, look, I mean, there's so much complexity with letting people go, right? I mean, you sort of alluded to it, but my introduction to HR was, I left my studies and I was sort of eager beaver and left my retail job and got my first corporate job as a HR administrator in this big global IT company. And it was so exciting. And about 6 months in, the GFC hit. So all I did for the next 18 months was I ran a redundancy program for all of Australia and New Zealand. All the logistics that, sit around letting go of hundreds and hundreds of people. But what people don't understand is often that's a rolling process. That's not oh, by the way, we're letting people go tomorrow and that's it. It's actually, which roles are we letting go now and in a month and in month 2 and in month 3 and in month 4? And business leaders need to think about this as an ongoing process and think about long-term as well, because a lot of roles in your organization do contain a lot of IP because they've been sitting in that person's head.
Yes.
And some businesses aren't great at getting IP out of people's heads and really embedding it into process. So now is a really good opportunity to get people to start documenting process, putting automation in place, really documenting things. The challenging thing here is people feel very threatened that they're going to lose their job.
Yeah.
So they're often not super compliant when it comes to, hey, can you start doing up a Word document of your job, please? You're not really going to inspire people.
Yeah.
You're not going to inspire people to do a handover document, right? Like that's not going to bring the best out in people.
Yeah.
So it'll be a challenging time of what roles will stay. and think about what roles are critical and who is critical for your business in 6 months from now when you're on the other end of this.
Yeah.
And trying to think strategically and think as long term as possible, with minimal impact on your business.
And we me and you have talked about it. We've noticed both the sort of rise in, especially sort of I shouldn't generalize, but there's, in younger people, you definitely see a rise in sort of mental health issues and different challenges in the workplace. Now, this is going to for me, this is all new territory, right? There's no one sets a plan and goes, do you know what? If a virus comes comes into your country, here's how you adapt, and it's all new territory for us as leaders as well. But then we're conscious of our team members that could potentially have mental health issues, and or could be suffering in having this isolate. Any guidance you could potentially give on how to make sure that, firstly, they're okay, and secondly, to I don't know if motivate's the right word, but sort of check in or.
Yeah, look, I think there's kind of a range of things that will stay true through this environment or in the future environment, and that's really understanding where people are at, inside and outside of work. And good managers know their people, and good managers know what makes those people tick. They know what's going on in their personal lives. And now's a really good opportunity, those one-on-ones that I talked about at the beginning. Now's the time to be saying, how are you finding working from home? Are you set up? What things are you finding challenging? What things do you need training on? Have you set yourself a routine? Yeah. One of the biggest things, especially around mental health, given that we're, potentially as we move further and further into isolation, is going to become things like just exercising, right? Yeah. Exercising if they're going to close gyms. And
absolutely, for me, that's one of my things that keeps me sane. And I'm like, okay, does that mean I can't go to the gym in my building, or
Yeah, and I think people might end up stocking up on gym equipment from Kmart and Rebel before stores close down, because there's nothing like working out at home if you can't get out. Yeah. That being said, nothing will continue to stop you from going for a jog and going for a walk. So even if it's encouraging your team members to, before they start every day or before they finish every day, is to go for a walk. I mean, that's going to be a really great way to get people to recharge, see that the world still exists, get out, breathe some fresh air. Because being isolated in your home can be, and if you live in an apartment too, it's going to get really intense. You're going to get cabin fever. Yeah.
I was going to say, for the introverts, I don't know, there's a funny meme that went around about, for introverts, how we sort of quite like this as a period. Whilst everyone knows my personality from a stage environment, actually fundamentally, there is an introvert that sits inside of me. But then the extroverts who, I don't know what you'd call it, but the highly sociable characters, they're the ones that I actually worry about. I know I've got team members that absolutely love nothing more than being around other human beings. And I concern for how they sort of go through this experience.
Yeah, and I think for them, when you're checking in with them, say to them, how are you still checking in with your personal friends, right? With your friends outside of work? Like, are you still like Zoom meeting them? Are you, you on Google Hangouts? What are you doing to stay connected with your friends and your family? Are you still seeing your family? What are you doing there? Because people need connection at work, but they also need connection outside of work. And if you've got employees that live on their own, they're also more vulnerable, because if they don't have a partner and they're living on their own, they're a highly extroverted person, they almost need to go up your risk sort of factors for them, because they're going to find this even more challenging.
Interesting. And look, final topic I want to talk about, and is the area of self-leadership. And this is more for team members. Love to know your thoughts on your thoughts on it. You told me about it. So I'd love to know how you sort of communicate this to team members about how they can take sort of self-leadership.
I think it's really important that people understand themselves, right? So self-leadership comes from a real deep understanding of knowing who you are, what motivates you, what drives you, what inspires you, and what do you need. And if you've really got to tap into that from a self-leadership perspective. If you really like routine and structure, you're one of those people that just need that in your life, don't wait for your manager to do it for you. Like, no one's going to carve out your day for you. Nobody micromanages like that. So you need to go and get organized, go to Officeworks, stock up on stationery if that's what floats your boat, and set yourself some really critical, organizational things that you need to get organized. If you're a highly social person and you know that you need human connection, put some structure in place. Go and make sure that every Sunday night you do a virtual hangout with your friends and do a check-in with your, colleagues at work, create a WhatsApp group, do what you need to do to make sure that it doesn't get worse for you, because the things that you set up now, we may be in this period for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think people actually have an opportunity to set up new habits. And I've been encouraging people to set up new habits, because habits get formed over sort of 30 to 45 days. If you do something regularly for that period of time, it becomes a habit. So think of this as like the best boot camp training you're ever going to have, and pick some goals for yourself, because now's the time. If you want to read more, if you want to write more, if you want to spend more time problem solving, if you want to get fit and healthy, like, you pick something that's important to you, and now is the time to be a leader for yourself.
So what's interesting, I was going to say, for me, one of the things was for at least a year, I've been talking about doing more of these type of interviews, because I'm pretty lucky in that I've got amazing people around me that I can obviously just easily get onto sessions like this. And it's like, I would love to share that with our ecosystem. Literally being forced to do it, and it's like, I'm actually so happy about it. It's probably one of my favorite things to do at the moment. And so I love the idea of sort of just picking up those additional habits that actually make you happy and add value to yourself.
Absolutely. And they could be habits inside and outside of work. So you might pick one thing that's outside of work and one thing that's inside of work. I mean, I've got friends I was talking to last night. They're going to set up a veggie garden, which they've been talking about for 5 years. It's like, great, hurry up and set up your veggie garden already. So everyone will create new habits for themselves, but be one of those people that actually comes out the other end of this a better person. I'm hearing that online learning is skyrocketing right now.
I bet it is.
Because people are sitting at home going, great, I've got all this free time. I'm going to learn a new language. I'm going to take an extra course, like a free online course through one of the business institutes. Now's a great opportunity to grow your mind, because you've got an opportunity where it's not that Christmas, New Year period that we get every year, that those sort of 2 weeks where we're all at home. It's a little bit different because work's still going on, but we're in that same state where you're at home.
It is. It's yes. And the other part I was going to say, for most of for most of the people I speak to, it's amazing how much time we spend on YouTube.
Yeah.
As far as for addition, documentaries, content, and also podcasts would be another one.
And so, I think now's a good time to work out, well, what is it that I want to learn? I know for me, we were meant to go to Greece. My husband's Greek. We were meant to go to Greece again this year. And every year we're like, we're going to learn more Greek. This year, we are actually going to learn more Greek because we have more time. And our kids are going to be home, so they're going to have no choice but to get
do it with
Greek. So,
well, Alicia, love having this chat with you. I'm sure we'll have some more as this sort of keeps on sort of progressing, because this HR part is actually going to be as hard as we work on technology, as hard as we all work on sales, ultimately it's team now that becomes so much more important in such a time like this. So I obviously want to love to do more sessions like this. You should actually, I don't think we've mentioned your company name, by the way.
Red Wolf.
Oh, there we go.
Red Wolf. Yeah, so Red Wolf Group.
So I don't even call Alicia anymore. I just call her Red Wolf. So anyway, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much for the guidance.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
See ya.
See ya.